Hi again. Today I want to talk about doubling and specifically the take-pass decision. How do you know? How can you begin to decide whether to take or pass? Um, and it's not just a matter of being able to look at the position and decide. Often what happens with improving players is that we get overwhelmed. So I noticed in teaching one of my students that there are a couple of things that I think can happen in his mind and in people's minds when they're faced with a double. Um, and so we can break it down. So our opponent cubes us, and in this position, we're playing the blue checkers. We just rolled a 5-6, and we couldn't come in. And our opponent, who is white, doubles to 2, and the score in the match is that he's leading 1-0 to 5 points. And so anyway, we face this double. And I noticed, I think, that what happens in improving players is that one is that they panic. And I think that the reason for the panic is that we're faced with a situation which inherently we don't really know anything about it. We don't really understand what's going on, what's happening. And when that happens in any sphere of life, not just backgammon, um, we have a vacuum in our mind and we don't like that vacuum. We're uncomfortable with not knowing what's going on. So our inclination is to make any decision either way quickly. So I notice that players will make a decision very quickly and they might have an inclination to just to take very quickly after a couple of seconds, or they might have an inclination just to pass. Now, a nuance is that after you fail to come in and your opponent passes, as an improving player, you have an inclination to just pass the cube without thinking. Now, this is even before the player has looked at the position to decide what's going on. So what I advise is that we observe that knee-jerk reaction to make any decision after about half a second. We stop ourselves, we just look at the board, we breathe, we just look at the doubling dice or doubling die, or as some very good players do, doubling dice is on the board here as the 64, sorry, and then we just push it to the side. And what that does is it allows us to think, it allows us to know that we're not going to make a decision yet. And as long as the doubling die is on the board, our opponent's just going to be waiting. If we're playing with the clock is going to be ticking, and we're in decision making mode. We are allowing ourselves, we're telling ourselves that we're going to think about it. Okay, so let's say we move the doubling cube to here. It's on 2, excuse me, not 64, and we're thinking. So then maybe we've just calmed down a little bit, and then we ask ourselves, well, what's happening in the position? So in order to establish what's happening, we will know that it sounds so obvious that our opponent will roll after, if we take the cube, after we take. So our opponent will roll. What can he do in his position? Oh, well, he can start to bring these checkers out. He might roll a 4, or he might roll a 4-2. He might make the bar. He might. Okay, so that's what our opponent does. So we've had a look. This is what could happen. Okay, what does it look like after our opponent rolls a 4? The that's the first stage of the decision making process. Then, in order to have any chance of getting the right decision, we have to go into the second stage of the decision-making process, which is to look at what our role will be after our opponent rolls. So our opponent has rolled a 4-1, let's say, and he just plays this. then it's our chance to come in, and we're still thinking, what will the position look like? We're going to roll. Okay. Well, I can roll a 1, 2, or 3 to come in. What if I roll a 1, 2? Oh, I come in like this. I've got 3 men on my 22 point. The position's going to look like this, with me there. My opponent is there with his checker like this. What does this position feel like to me? Is it a bad? Am I in a bad position? Am I in a good position? You don't even really need to know anything to do with percentages. You just need to sort of look at yourself and look into your sort of brain, which will have seen lots of positions, and ask yourself, well, do I mind playing this position if I come in and have 3 checkers there? Now, whether or not you conclude that you do or you don't is not the point. You've started to build, I don't know if the right word is a heuristic, but you've started to build a model, and you've got to, it's almost like you're building a house, and you've built the first floor. You can start to see what it looks like. And then you're going to be able to say to yourself, oh, I don't mind playing from this position. And remember, the cube is still there. You're still making your decision process, still making your decision, excuse me. And then you decide, okay, I'm going to take. And then, whether you're right or wrong, you've actually looked at the position and decided one way or the other. Alternatively, you might look at the position and decide, well, I don't want to take and I pass. And really, that's what we need to do when we come and we make a cue decision. We have to, one, relax, don't knee jerk, don't make a decision in the first millisecond. Then say to yourself, okay, if we take, my opponent is going to roll. What will his position look like after the roll? Try and visualize it as best you can. Then um, then we will have a roll. Try and visualize what it will look like after our roll. If this sounds too overwhelming, just start in little in steps. When you get cubed, start to try and visualize what the position will look like after your opponent has a roll, and maybe that will help you see the position a little bit more clearly. And I think this is, to conclude, this is a common error amongst intermediate and improving players. They just have a big difficulty in letting the uncertainty sink in, and just letting the cube sit on the table without making a decision. Just, even if you're not thinking anything, just sit there and just have a blank and just let the clock run down. Maybe something will come up, and you'll see something in the position that you didn't know you saw. Um, so yeah, I hope I've explained this as clearly as possible. If you have any questions, just write them in the comments box. And I really hope this helps with the take-pass decision process. This is, of course, nothing to do with the doubling itself. You're just asking yourself how you go about things when you're facing a double. I suppose to finish it off, um, I was playing the white checkers, and I doubled my opponent, and I often, when I double, I have a sense of whether my opponent should take or pass, and my sense that my opponent should take. I thought it was an easy take, and my sense that was that my opponent would pass, and the answer is ah ah ah. That's not the right sound, but drum roll. The answer is that it's not even a cube yet. Oh, and it's not even a cube yet. Sorry, and it's a very big blunder to pass. So there you go. Just try and take your time. Take your time. Take your time. Okay, thanks for watching. And yeah, any comments in the comments box, like and subscribe. Really enjoy making these videos, and I hope you do too, watching them.